In the Philippines, not wanting children isn't just a personal decision. It's something people feel entitled to question, especially when a foreigner is involved. So today we're talking about something I get asked all the time, online, in person, even by strangers sometimes. Being child-free as a Filipina and why it's still controversial here in the Philippines, especially if you're with a foreign partner. Hi guys, it's Dee and welcome back to the channel. Before we get into it, please take a second to subscribe to the channel because it really helps support these kinds of honest, no-nonsense, unfiltered conversations, especially ones you won't usually hear elsewhere. Now, I want to say this early and clearly so nobody twists my words later on. This is not an anti-kids video. I love kids. I respect parents and I respect motherhood. This is about choice and why in this culture for women, choice is still sometimes not fully respected. And let's not make this about feminism, please. If you're an expat dating or married to a Filipina, you'll understand your partner better after this. Because a lot of men don't realize the pressure isn't just in her head. It's around her. It's in the culture. It's in the comments. It's in the family gatherings. It's technically everywhere. Now here in the Philippines, especially traditionally, there's a very clear life script for women. You grow up, you finish school, you find a husband, you build a family, and you have kids. Motherhood isn't treated like one path among many. It's treated like the path, like the correct outcome, like this is the way. And the older generation especially sees it as a proof that you're settled, that you're fulfilled, that you're complete. So when a woman says she doesn't want kids, people don't hear it as a personal preference. They hear it as a problem. They assume something is wrong. They assume that she's selfish, or she's immature, or she's scared, or she'll regret it eventually, or she's just saying that because, she's still young, and I get that all the time. And the craziest part is how casual people are about it, like it's normal to ask, when are you having kids? And if you say I'm not, they don't stop there. They follow with, why? That's why most of the time I just say just because honestly, I don't want to perform a courtroom defense every time someone asks me a personal question, and I have a lot of reasons and I don't treat this as a small talk topic. But since I'm asked nonstop and since some expats ask me too, here we are. This is the full explanation. Stay tuned and finish the video. Now let's talk about why the pressure becomes more intense when your partner is a foreigner. If you're an expat watching this and you're like, wait, why does that matter? It matters because in the Philippines, people attach a whole set of assumptions to foreign men. Some positive, some negative, and a lot of them are actually unfair. So when a Filipina is with a foreign boyfriend or fiance or husband, people don't just expect marriage, they expect children, and not just children. Children that are almost treated like a bonus of being with a foreigner. There's a Tagalog idea that people say, sayang ang lahi. It's hard to translate perfectly, but it basically means it's a waste not to pass on the bloodline, like it's a waste not to have a mixed child. And some people think mixed kids are automatically, more attractive, more successful, more valuable. And that's the ugly side of colonial mentality and colorism, because, it's not pretty, but it's very real. So when people find out you're with a foreigner and when you say you don't want kids, it's like you're breaking a deal they imagined for your life. They act like you're throwing away an opportunity. And I need expat men to hear this. That pressure is not always coming from your partner, sometimes it's coming from everyone around her. Sometimes she's not even fully safe to say what she really wants because she knows the reaction she'll get. Now we're going to talk about something very Filipino, very traditional, and very real. In the Philippines, especially for the older generation, many people view their children as retirement plans. And I'm not saying that to, insult anyone. I'm saying it because it's historically true and it comes from survival. A lot of families didn't have stable pensions. They didn't have investments, they didn't have savings accounts, and that could actually support them when they get old. Life wasn't stable, work wasn't stable, healthcare was expensive, and it still is actually. And the system was not built to protect people. So the cultural solution became, you raise kids and later your kids will take care of you. And it became a normal expectation, even moral, like, I sacrificed for you, so you should sacrifice for me. And again, this didn't start because people were necessarily bad. It started because people were trying to survive. And I'm sure there are bad people out there, bad parents, that deliberately bears kids to, sell them or make them slaves and all that. It really happens here in the Philippines. But here's the tension. That expectation is still alive today, even though, the world has changed and it affects the way people judge child-free couples. And if you say you don't want kids, some people don't just hear, I don't want to be a parent. They hear, so who will take care of you when you're old? Because in their mind, that's what kids are for. So child-free doesn't just sound like a personal choice. It sounds like you're rejecting the system that helped older generations to survive. And when a foreigner is involved, it gets even more complicated because people start thinking in practical, almost transactional terms. They assume, well, he has money. They assume he can provide. They assume a kid will secure the relationship. And yes, some people genuinely believe that having a child with a foreign man makes it harder for him to leave. And that is a heavy, unfair burden to place on a child. A child should never exist as an insurance in the first place, Now, this is usually the part where people expect a list, a clear explanation, something they can easily understand and move on from and maybe relate to, And I want to say this carefully. Choosing not to have children is a very personal decision. In an ideal world, saying I don't want kids would already be enough and, without needing a long explanation attached to it. The reason I often keep my answer short is because once you start explaining, the conversation sometimes shifts. It stops being about understanding and turns into problem-solving, reassurance, or gentle convincing. Sometimes not even gentle. People usually mean well when they say things like, you'll figure it out, medicine is better now, or the world has always been uncertain. Those comments, often come from care and not from judgment, but answering the same questions again and again can still feel exhausting. So instead of going into details every time, I usually keep it simple. But for the sake of honesty, and because this topic keeps coming up, I want to share our reasons here. Not to convince anyone, but in case, it helps you understand where I'm coming from, or maybe even resonate or relate with it. So here are our real reasons why we don't want to have kids. First, and the biggest one, is the age gap. I've mentioned in my previous videos that my fiance and I have a 28-year age gap. And again, this is a big one because, people try to ignore it because it's not romantic to talk about, but it's real life. If we had a child, my fiance wouldn't get to experience parenting the same way a younger father would. And that's not an insult, that's not a judgment either. It's just time. It's the reality of aging, it's energy, it's health. It's the fact that life has limits, and it's very real. And trust me, this was not at all a very fun conversation to have, but it's necessary. Second is health. My mother died of congenital heart disease, and my fiance also has a heart condition. That changes how you think about the future, that changes how you think about risk, and that changes how you think about what kind of life you're bringing a child into and what kind of future you can realistically guarantee for the child. Third is the truth about parenting. It's a lifetime commitment. It's not a cute phase. It's not a we'll manage. Parenting is mentally damaging. It can challenge your identity, your relationship, your nervous system, your finances, your freedom, and everything. And I'm not the type to romanticize it because I respect it too much to do it halfway. Fourth is the world. This might be cliche, but people hate when you say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're not living in a secure world. Economically, socially, environmentally, it's unstable. And I don't want to bring a child into a world where I'm not confident that I can give them stability, not just love. Stability, especially here in the Philippines. Fifth is the financial reality and personal history. I grew up with deprivation, and I know what it feels like to go without. I know what it feels to watch adults struggle. I know what it feels like to have to be strong too early. And I promised myself that if I ever had a child, I would be able to give them a life where they don't have to carry adult stress while still being a kid, because it's very exhausting and draining. And finally, my fiance doesn't want to start over. This is something a lot of expat men will understand deeply. People assume men don't think about this, but men do, and a lot of men know how hard raising kids is, especially if they've already lived it or seen it up close. Not wanting to start over doesn't mean you hate children. It means you know what it costs. And if you're an expat watching this, I want you to understand something important. In many mixed relationships, it's actually the foreign partner who is more hesitant about having children. Often because of age, health, finances, or the fact that he's already lived that phase of life. And that's very valid, And in contrast, many Filipinos do want children because motherhood is still deeply valued and culturally reinforced here. So when a Filipina says she doesn't want kids, that choice usually isn't casual. It often means she's gone through a lot of reflection, internal conflict, and pressure before even saying it out loud. And at the same time, when the foreign partner is the one who doesn't want children, that needs to be handled with honesty and care too. This isn't a small difference in preference. This is a core life decision. This is why expectations and boundaries have to be talked about early, before emotions deepen, before families get involved, and before assumptions quietly take over. Hoping the issue will resolve itself later usually leads to resentment on one side and silent sacrifice on the other. Clear conversations don't mean ultimatums, they mean respect. If you don't want children, it's important to say that clearly and early rather than letting your partner assume that time, marriage, or circumstance will change your mind. And if she does want children, that deserves to be acknowledged honestly, not postponed or minimized. And for couples who are aligned, whether that means, having children or choosing to be child-free, support matters. Sometimes that support isn't loud or defensive. Sometimes it's being united and saying, this is our decision, and not allowing outside judgment or outside voices to pressure either of you into a life you didn't consciously choose. I'm traditional in many ways. I value family, I respect elders, and I deeply respect the sacrifices older generations made, because many of them didn't have the freedom or choices that we have now. Those traditions helped families survive, and I don't take that lightly. And at the same time, I believe tradition is meant to guide us, not limit us. Many long-held beliefs were shaped by necessity, and while they made sense then, today we're often faced with very different realities. In a modern world, our choices have to be intentional and thoughtful. Choosing to be child-free doesn't mean rejecting family values. For some people, it simply means building a family in a different way. It can mean choosing peace, stability, and honesty about what you can realistically handle in life. And for me, the most responsible choice is not bringing a life into the world just because it's expected of me. So, yes, I'm child-free, and yes, it can be controversial, but this is the life that feels right and honest for me, and that's something I stand by with respect for others who choose differently. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching. And if this resonated, don't forget to subscribe and feel free to join the channel membership if you want to support more conversations like this. This has been Dee, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! And scenes. Now we're going to talk in the Philippines that deliberately something they can easily understand